So here on example 1, it says find the focus and the directrix of the parabola given by y squared equal to 12x. Okay, so everything that we do, so if it's y squared, then that means it's going to look something like this or like that. X squared is like your normal. That's not any different from what you're accustomed to. So if we would have y squared equal to basically 4px, then what I need to do is figure out what my p-value is. Okay, I have the x, so from there I need to figure out there's no movement, so there's no plus or minus, so I'm just going to have a point at 0, 0. Okay, we'll get into the movement and things like that in a second. So from there, the biggest thing, you would treat it just like you would any other parabola. So I have to find my focus. So my focus is just going to be basically 12x equal to 4px. I'm solving for p because what's going to happen to the x's? They're going to cancel. What do I need to do to solve for p? Divide by 4. So 3 is equal to p. All that means is my focus is at point 3, 0. That means I'm going to have a point at 3, 0. That means my then directrix is x equal to the opposite of whatever that value is. So I'm just going to have like a imaginary line on the back side, and then my something like that there. Similar to whenever we did the hyperbolas, whenever we did the ellipses and things like that, I'm not worried so much as far as how the graph looks as I am worried about, do you have the focus point right, and do you have the directrix, basically that imaginary axis, in the right spot. Other than that, if your graph isn't completely perfect, that'll be okay. Now, this part just talks about basically the length from your focus to your graph. Okay, it's the latus rectum. Okay, go ahead and get your giggles out now. Exactly. Okay, but it does use that word. It's really okay. It's really just the length from that center point up to where it's going to be the same distance to your parabola. Okay? It's really just the absolute value of whatever your 4p part is equal to. So like on the problem before, it would have been 12, like the distance from your focus point to the spot on the graph on the one we just did would have been 12, okay, in both directions. So whenever it's basically the width of your point. So if I have, now this one's a little bit different because it's x squared. So if it's x squared and it is negative, so which way, like if we would have graphed this one normally, what would we have done? We would have divided by -8, and we would have had -1/8 x squared equal to y. Like this is how you were accustomed to graphing this equation before, right? So you already know how to graph this and you already know what to do. So that's why putting the graph together isn't a big deal. It's more finding the focus point and your directrix, and then the distance basically across through that focus point. Okay. Now, if it is negative, which way is it going to go? Bless you. If it's negative and it's x squared, it's going to look something along the lines like it's going to have a point at 0, 0. Okay, here, right? And then it's going to look something like that, right? Essentially. Make sense? Okay. Now, if we need to find my focus point, I'm going to go back to my original here where it's x squared equal to negative 8y. It's the same thing just like it would be before, but now it's just x squared equal to 4py. So again, I need to find my focus point. So 4p is equal to negative 8. So what's p going to be equal to? Negative 2. So that means I'm going to have a point here at negative 2. Directrix then is, so there's my focus point. Directrix is y equal to a positive 2. So that means it's going to be like a imaginary line up above here. Now, what's the distance all the way across? Or really, it's like if I would go, it's basically giving me another point. If it is negative 8, okay, then that means all the way across is going to be a distance of 8. So it just really just gives you references as far as your points to run through. Okay, because all I'm really doing is just taking the absolute value of whatever this number right there is. I'm just taking the absolute value of negative 8. So it's 8 all the way across. So if it's 8 all the way across, that means it's 4 to the left, 4 to the right. One thing you can do is really just split that number in half, and from your focus point is go either right that direction, left that direction, or depending on if it's a y squared, then just go up and down the same way. It's similar to like what we did whenever we found our two vertices, or from the center, or we found the co-vertex, things like that. Find your center, which essentially is kind of like your is like your focus point, and go half of that direction. Okay.